You're listening to the Career Musician Podcast, empowering musicians with strategies for a sustainable career.
On this episode, we are featuring Carlos Rafael Rivera, who has composed the score for the Netflix hit miniseries The Queen's Gambit, as well as Godless. A protege of Randy Newman, he earned a DMA in composition at USC's Thornton School, where he studied with Donald Crockett and Stephen Hartke. He has done sessions for Island Def Jam and Universal Records, and had songs featured on Netflix's Firefly Lane, ABC's Scrubs, MTV, and VH1. With a unique ability of incorporating a large diversity of musical influences into his compositions, all which reflect his musical cultural upbringing in Central America and the United States, his work for the performing arts has been featured by some of the most prominent ensembles and soloists, including Arturo Sandoval, Colin Currie, the Chicago Sinfonietta, American Composers Orchestra, Los Angeles Guitar Quartet, and has served as a composer in residence with the Miami Symphony Orchestra. Right here on the Career Musician, Carlos Rafael Rivera. Hey, nice to meet you officially.
Of course, nice guitars.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I do the podcast because it's a passion project, and I believe that through our experience and wisdom over the years of what we've done, we can pass it down to generations to come. So I can't wait to talk to you about all of that, because I know you're the assistant professor over there at Frost, and anyway, lots of stuff. But by trade, I'm a session guitarist, and now I'm moving into composing. I've always been a session guitarist and producer and writer, but for the past, 5 years or so, I've been really trying to get into composing. So let me just start by saying I'm a huge fan of yours. So
thanks, dude. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. That's really cool to hear. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And anytime that I get to see a fellow guitar slinger actually, or, more than just play guitar, and of course, you know how I mean that, and do it in the upper echelon of the industry, my hat's off to you, nothing but respect.
Thanks, bro. Crazy. Very lucky, that is for sure. So I'm very aware of that.
Awesome. Well, that's so beautiful. And we have lots of common friends. Tim Davies.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I love that. Everybody says that. It's because Tim is such a ball buster. I love it. Yeah.
He is. He's fertile, man. Woo! He's a real deal. He's I think he is the best musician I know.
Yeah.
I think he is. On planet Earth, I think he's kind of up there.
Yeah, he's pretty ridiculous. He sure is. Mm-hmm. And I was just talking to the team, Jordan Siegel and Jeremy, and they all say hello, of course, so
please.
Yeah, we all know each other.
Yeah. Tell them I say what's up.
Yeah. And I just interviewed those guys, and also Ashley Jarmack. She was very excited to work with you as well. So.
Oh man, great. No, it was a blast to have this whole thing happen. You know what I mean? And not get fired from the gig also is a big deal. Because it's always crazy. It's always a hard thing. You never know, if you're going to find it or not. And then I found it, I guess. But it was really a pretty harrowing experience, at least internally. It's always been a process for me where it feels like, it's like I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. I'm not the most confident of people during the making of it. I always think it's going to be there. I think people call it the imposter syndrome or whatever, but the difference between maybe what I was doing 20 years ago and now is that I know I'm going to deliver. Before it was like I wouldn't know if I could, I know it's always going to be there when it needs to be there, and which is the most important part of the job. But the actual process internally is always the same. You're just doing it, and you're like, I don't know. I always do feel like I don't know how to do it, and then it happens, and it's not like, oh, how did that happen? There's none of that stupid stuff going on. It's just more like, you know what I mean? Like it's like a process. And
I know exactly what you mean, and I appreciate you being so candid, because as musicians, I think most of us can relate to that.
Yeah, dude. It's absolutely a fact. For me personally, and I wish I did think when I was younger that I'd come to a place, or arrive at the morning you wake up, you're like, I get it. That hasn't happened, and I don't think it will now that I'm older. So it's just part of the deal.
All right. Well, man, I don't want to keep you too long, so I want to be expeditious, and I want to hit all the points.
Sure.
Let's get started officially. Carlos Rafael Rivera, welcome to the Career Musician.
Pleasure to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We are grateful to have you. So I love the precursor of what you just shared with us. Again, that candor is so important to let us all know that we're human and we all experience the same emotions from time to time. And it's okay to admit that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's absolutely a fact. I mean, I think it's more important to admit it to yourself than go public. No one really cares anything anyways,
That's true.
It's just, it's your own internal journey that you have to kind of figure out and just trying to be honest about where, how much you suck at something. And that's hard because, it's hard to be objective about what you do. And it's good when you collaborate with people because some people have no tact. And so they're helping you by being brutal without realizing they're being brutal. They're not thinking they're hurting your feelings. They're thinking what you did sucked. So, you know what I mean?
I love it, man. I'm a New Yorker, so I have that straightforward vibe, and sometimes I'm guilty of that too. So.
Yeah, and it's just understanding. And one of the coolest things, I don't know if I'm jumping way ahead, man, but we did have a guest at our school, and his name is Salam Remy. We had him as an artist in residence thing for like a semester. And he, one of the greatest things he said, and I needed to hear it, was like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And he said it. I hadn't heard it, but what I just said, he was like, "You are not your work. You are not your work." And I was like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like, it's so important to hear that because we identify who we are as the work we do. And when somebody puts the work down, it's personal.
We take it personal. Yeah.
For you, right? I mean, how many times does that happen that you go to bed going, that one comment, that one line that just, made you think accounting, I should be an accountant.
I love it. All right. So tell us how you got here, because you are a composer and a guitarist. You're the assistant professor and director of media writing and production at the University of Miami Frost School of Music. So, just those three things right there. Those are 3 lifetimes, right? So tell us how the music bug bit you and how you got started and how this trajectory kind of played out for you.
Well, the music bug started when I was a kid. I remember like crying, listening to music. Like music would make me cry. And I think anything made me cry, bro, to be honest. I was one of those crybaby kids. So it's like, but I remember like being very emotional and connecting to music in a way that felt special. But I never thought, well, this is special because I'm going to be a musician. There was no trajectory or path that I knew of. I was just in Central America, listening to music and watching movies. My brother and I would record. We before we had a video cassette recorder, because I'm 50. We used to, before Betamax or VHS or we used to record on our Panasonic stereo that was like a portable stereo player. Used to press record and listen and record movies, and one of the movies was The Great Train Robbery. So we would record it on cassette next to the speaker of the TV and listen to the movie next, in our room. Like it was our way of entertaining ourselves. We'd listen to The Great Train Robbery or listen to Star Trek Wrath of Khan or whatever was playing on Showtime. And I just remember the music had a big deal to play there. And it was always like something I connected to. E.T., the movie, when it came out, it was like, oh my God, I cried, when the bikes take off and unexpectedly in E.T. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So 40 years late, but basically that moment, dude, I remember like the tears burst out of my eyes uncontrollably. I remember like 2 times it's happened that tears jumped out of my eyeballs instead of like, when you cry, they literally did that. Wow. It was that moment. And then Ennio Morricone's score for Cinema Paradiso, the last scene, which, if you haven't seen it, it's great.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, music was part of my life, and I never thought I'd be doing it. But we did take piano lessons for a year in Guatemala. I did, and then we moved to Costa Rica. No lessons there. I moved to Panama when I was 11. I started taking guitar lessons, classical guitar lessons. And then I moved back to Costa Rica. So we always would have to drop the teacher, and lessons would probably fall away as well. But my brother joined a band, you know, in Costa Rica, and he was, you know, he was older, 4 years older than me, and then and still is now. And he was like, you know, the bass player of the band, and I'd show up to the rehearsals, but I was like the unwanted little brother. If you're a kid, like 4 years is a huge difference, right? So, and so I remember hanging out and watching, and I'd learn, and I started playing, and then eventually I joined a band with my brother in my teens. But I wasn't thinking career. I was just thinking it's something I'm doing, like a hobby. Like, you know, we started writing songs. My brother and I, we formed a band called Destiny. Very 80s name, which is the mid 80s, late 80s. And then we started playing covers, and we started doing cover music, and we started making money at it. We started playing like the dances of our local private schools, high schools in Miami, and we're making good money. And then, you know, we started getting more serious about it, but then my brother got married and I moved away. And so all that ended. I was in different bands, but by that time I was like doing this music thing, and it started to become like more of a serious thing, you know?
I love
But
it.
I'm getting bored, and it's my story. So if you want to interrupt, please go ahead or ask something else. Jesus.
Okay, no, I love it, and believe me, the listeners are going to appreciate it. So, okay. First of all, you are very nomadic, and that's one of the things why I took the moniker nomad is because as musicians, we're all modern day nomads, right?
Yeah.
And my father is also he's Cuban. He was born in Matanzas, Cuba, so I have the Cuban.
Nice.
I'm Cuban Italian. I noticed you're Cuban and Guatemalan descent.
Yes, I am. Yep.
But
Mutt, a true mutt.
I love it. So you were born in D.C., you grew up in Virginia, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Panama, Miami, and are you residing in L.A. now?
No, Miami.
Okay, Miami.
I moved back to Miami 10 years ago.
Okay, but you went to school out here in Miami at USC. I mean,
I
out here
went
in Los Angeles.
in LA.
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
I moved to LA, and I went to USC to get my master's degree in composition.
Okay.
And then I got signed to a record label, and then Universal Records, but the record never really officially came out. You know, the label folded, or the sublet label that signed us, called 333 Music, which was started by a director actually called Tom Shadyac. He directed Bruce Almighty and all these other movies. He's a big director, and really gave us a career, like gave us the beginning of that. But that was like a journey I went through for a while. It's like a longer story. But the short of it is that I went back to school, and then I continued to get my doctoral degree there in classical composition. I was like doing the whole, like, you know, like when I moved to LA, I had like a goatee and I had a bum knee. So I wanted to get like a cane. And back then music was like a very big composition. So I used to carry this music folder portfolio. And I was like, dude, the full on, if I could have a foreign accent, I would have hooked it up, you know, to impress people. You know, sound erudite, which I was totally down that Kool-Aid route, you know, and it was the path, and teaching was the path for me. I was going to be a teacher, and I am. It's what my day job is, you know, and so I was always into the academia thing, but then the film music thing really started to happen thanks to meeting with Scott Frank, the director.
So then you studied under Randy Newman at Thornton School of Music, is that correct?
Yeah, because I studied under Stephen Harkey and Donald Crockett at USC. They're the classical composition teachers. And Stephen Harkey was great because he was brutal. I loved it. And Donald Crockett was a different kind of brutal, but great. He really was important, because when I got signed, I was like, hey man, I got signed to a record deal, and I don't know if I was going to finish my master's, but I didn't. And he's the one who told me, he's like, Carlos, you're young once, go do this record thing, and we're always going to be here, which was the best advice I could have ever received. Yeah. And I went and failed miserably after 2 or 3 years with the band, came back, and he's the one who brought me back. He's like, did you ever think of finishing your degree? I was like, no. You know, did you ever think of finishing your master's? I was like, no. And he goes, why don't you finish it? I finished it. He goes, did you ever think of getting a doctoral degree? I was like, nope. And he's like, why don't you do it? I was like, okay. And I did it. And during that time they had on the board at USC Randy Newman, along with other people, and they had a mentorship program. And so Randy was on the board, and I applied for it, and he emailed me, and I couldn't believe it, you know? Wow. And so he became my mentor. And I thought it was going to be like 15-minute hang. I went to his house and I thought I was going to be there for 15 minutes and he's going to say, hey, you're a good half Cuban kid. All right, get out of here. I'm going to go be Randy Newman, you know?
Yeah.
And but it wasn't. It was like a 2-hour hang or longer. And I remember going, oh my God, this is so incredible. I remember just like fanning, because at the time and still to this day, but I was really into the songwriter Randy Newman more than the film composer. Like the stuff like Nilsson sings Newman, which is I think from 1970 or 71 or something like that. One of the great records, some of the greatest songs are there. And so I got to meet him, and then he started inviting me to these sessions that he was doing from films. He did a movie for George Clooney, and he did a movie for Disney, The Princess and the Frog. And I went to that session. So I got to see how a film score was recorded. And I remember being like the fly on the wall, you know, being told to move out of my chair because a Disney executive was there. And so I had to get out of the way. You know what I mean? Like there's no dignity in that, you know, and it's okay because that's who I was supposed to be, you know. Right. And I even saw the directors give Randy a cue change, you know, like give him a note. They're like, there's something about this part that's not working. And I was like, how dare you guys say that to Randy Newman? You know what I mean? And like, you understand, you know, and he turned around, he's like, okay, I think I can change it. I think we can make some changes. Give me a few minutes. Let me go outside and talk to the musician. And I was like, oh, he's working for them.
Right.
So that was like one of the big lessons was the pecking order and the fact that what we do as film music makers or music makers we're a service industry. We are serving the vision of the director, or whoever's paying your bills, you know?
That's right.
You're not giving a gift of music to whoever is collaborating with you. You're collaborating with them and ultimately doing what they say. And that was one of the first lessons I really took to heart, because when I started getting revision cues for me, I was like, okay, Randy Newman totally I should shut up, you know what I mean? And get to work.
Yeah, if Randy changes it, then I can change it. Yeah.
Then I better change it if I want to keep my job, you know. And that really stuck with me. That was one of the best lessons, was watching him working, you know, and then we've maintained a relationship through now, which is a blessing, and it's a miracle that he answers my calls at all, you know. Wow. And to me, I'm still a huge fan, and I can call him a friend now, you know. It's like, but it really has been one of the great. I've always called him when I've been sort of stuck, and he just says something that is usually hilarious because he's, you know, super funny person. So
that's incredible. Brilliant. Talking about to have a mentor of that stature, you know, that is a huge blessing. You are right. Okay, so a couple things I want to talk about here. First of all, the fact that your professors over at Thornton School of Music encouraged you, said, hey, did you think about getting your master's? Did you think about getting your doctorates? Go ahead and do that record deal while it's available. You're only young once. Those are words of wisdom that are really priceless, because when you have people who've come before you give you their vote of confidence and tell you, yes, you should go do X, Y, Z. I mean, that's invaluable, right?
You know, I've talked about this over the years. You're mentioning it that way and you're framing it that way. I remember talking to, you know, as a student, you know, like hanging out with people, and it's like trying to have that self-analysis moment, which is so hard when you're young, you know. Yeah. You can't really pull out of your own head. You know, it's hard to do it. But having those moments of insight of like, dude, one comment can make or break so many people, you know, and it's the encouragement of one person and an offhanded comment they're not even aware, positive or negative, that can devastate you. And I remember like talking about this, and we made an analogy back then. This was a guy called, I remember talking to specifically a guy called Franco Platino, who was a guitar player, classical guitar player guy. And I remember, and we were talking about it, like you're driving through a desert, right? And it's the oasis in the desert, or the gas station, you know, that gives you enough for the tank, just enough to kind of keep going. And that is the kind of thing that these words are, you know, like I remember specifically also at FIU when I was an undergrad starting to study composition, that the chairperson of the department, and his name was Frederick Kaufman, who was a composer too. And I'd done this piano trio thing, and all of us, the students, had presentations of pieces, and and this piano trio, they played it. I'd rehearsed it with them. It was the first time I was hearing a cellist play notes I'd written, or a violinist play notes. And it's always this otherworldly, it's like going to Disney for the first time. You're like, what is this? You know? Yeah. How does this, why does it sound? I wrote these notes and yet they're playing it. And then you start getting the British accent and then you start getting full of yourself. Because you think it's like, I can do this, I can wield. But the truth is you suck at the time. So anyway, and I did for sure. So, but the point is that they played it, and the chairperson was like, "I like it." That was it, dude. He said, "I like it," not like, "Oh," no. And I was like, "Oh yes, thank you. I can keep doing it." Like a validation, you know, and that's the seeking out external validation, and it is the oasis in the desert. The internal validation is the harder part, you know, to trust that you can. What pushes you forward when you're facing such adversity, when you're really thinking, I don't know, I should become an accountant officially.
Well, but I love, okay, all right, let's park there for a minute. I love the juxtaposition of that internal dialogue that you're struggling, battling with yourself.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're nominated for an Emmy, you won an Emmy, you're working on like the biggest, pop culture, some of pop culture's biggest, media presentations currently speaking. And you still, on one side, you have this internal, conflict. And on the other side, you're being showered with accolades. Wow. That's a big, talking about a dichotomy here.
Yeah. Yeah. But I will say, I think if I was 20 years younger, I'd be a complete idiot right now. I'd probably be a nightmare to deal with.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be listening to the internal voice or the fact that life happens at you anyway. Like you'll have a relative pass away, or you'll have something while the positive external visual that is appearing to the world, is one thing. The reality, internal thing never changes, only you can allow it to change you or enjoy that moment. But I know how fleeting this really is. This industry is, the people that people come and go, and then there's a few who have more of a shelf life, but I have no expectations. I'm just grateful to get to talk to you and have interviews and talk to people, but I'm not expecting anything from it. And it's been maybe a defense mechanism for me, because it helps me stay sane. Because you can read stuff or buy into it, and it's ultimately work. You're just working or not working, and that's why I like teaching so much, because it also I'm always aware of the new students that are coming in, the kind of writing that's happening. I see, as easy at my age, you can start to get curmudgeon-y about things, jaded, cynical. And you can get but and just starting to sound like that about anything, but when you see students that are young and really full of they know that the world is their oyster. They know that they're going to change the world with what they do. And then knowing also that life's going to happen at them anyway, and
still steadfast to that truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether they're going to break through that life issue, which we all have to deal with at some point. You have 4 jobs, and which I've done, to make ends meet, or, it's just like, it's a beautiful thing to go, because you get inspired. You're inspired by that sort of thing, that I can't lose that. You can't lose that, because as you get older, it just goes away. And so it's like, don't lose it.
Amen to that. This message of humility that you're abiding by is such a breath of fresh air. So thank you once again. All right, let's talk about the teacher in you, because I was born of the same cloth where I've always had that teaching gene, but I was always a player and a musician and a writer first, right? But up until now, I ignored the teaching. And that's what the Career Musician Podcast is all about. Again, passing along these pearls of wisdom. And it sounds like you have that same kind of vibe in what you're doing. Talk about your position at the Frost School of Music, and a little bit more, shed light a little bit more on how you feel you're passing the torch to these younger generations, like you're talking about.
At the School of Music, we just recently changed the name from media writing to media scoring and production, only because it's been called media writing for like, I don't know, 15 or so or more years. And before that was called studio and jazz writing, studio writing and production, I think it was called initially. So writing changed, and now we're just being more relevant to what it's called, media scoring. And media is like, whether it used to be like even 5 or 10 years ago, it's like film, but now it's like TV. You know what I mean? It's like the storytellers are all kicking it over there. I just saw Loki and Natalie Holt's freaking score, which is like a masterpiece to me. And whether a separate it works or not is irrelevant because it works, but it feels so freaking good with the picture, And anyways, so media scoring. Oh yeah, I just totally lost my train of thought. So I've been running that program for the last 4 years or so, and I've been teaching at the Frost School of Music for the last like 11 years.
Wow.
Going my 11th year now. And before that I was at USC, whether it was a TA and or then teacher since 99 or, on and off. So I've been in academia for a long time. And at the Frost School, the media scoring production we have, we're focused on people learning the production skills and of course media writing skills. But right now they're sort of intertwined. There's no way you can write a demo and play it on the piano for a director and say, hey, trust me, it's going to sound great when they're like, yeah, so you're fired next. And so you have to kind of produce your own demos now, and you have to have that skill set, which has been really important for me. And especially in these times that everything's remote and people are inaccessible, to be able to kind of make things sound good out of the, what we call, whatever this, I'm an old guy. So I hate these terms, by the way. I'm sorry I'm all over the place, but
which term?
Like, okay, ready? Like older people used to say, put on your cans. You know what I mean?
I still say cans.
Well, dude, you know what I'm saying? I was like, I'm never going to say cans. Look, we got the same ones.
Buyer dynamics. These are dope.
Yes. Yeah. They're great, bro. And then, but I don't say cans. Like I've just like now one of the things we say is out of the box, out of the laptop. Right. Out of the box. And I'm like, I'm being that guy. I don't want to be that guy. So, but anyway, so the point is like, we try to teach them the skill set.
Yeah.
It's a hands-on program in the sense that we really believe in smaller class sizes, but also hands-on. It's very iterative. Like, there's literally the bulletin says it's like media scoring 1, 2, and 3. Production 1, 2, and 3. There's no like, and then there's details in it, but you're going to develop a certain skill set that'll get you to the next level. And then you build a certain skill set that gets you to the next level. And for media scoring, the first semester with me, what I do is we work on story. I mean, people can write music, but it's letting go of the idea of the music being more important than the story, and trying to understand storytelling and trying to understand story points. So we kind of really do that for the first semester. Then the second semester assumes like that you've gotten your cue approved. Now you got to make it. So not only are you going to be writing cues, but then we're going to have to record it. And so we record it with the musicians from the Mancini Institute that we have at the Frost School. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so it's sort of like a really hands-on kind of program. But the teaching style thing for me is really talking about all the mistakes I make. As much as I can share what the things I've been making mistakes on now, because I'm lucky, very lucky that I happen to be working now. And so I have to deliver assets and deliverables that are what like companies like Disney or HBO or Netflix requests from me, so I understand what the parameters are, what the technical aspects are that I have to present. So I'm talking about things that are happening now, not like 20 years ago, I used to roll tape. And it's not so much the fact that the skill set changes, because the craft of writing the story has been the same as it was when it started to picture, but the deliverables and the technical aspects have changed considerably. So I like the fact that at this moment I'm current with what's going on out there, so I can teach them what's happening today. Technically speaking. But hopefully, if I keep working, that's great. But if I wouldn't work, I could still be able, hopefully, to teach them just the craft of writing the picture, understanding where music can serve a different kind of role. Whether a simple thing that I really didn't think about, but until I worked with someone called Wiley's Statement as a sound designer. There was a scene in a show I did called Godless where this woman's reading this letter, and I wrote the music for the scene, and he had a comment, and it was like one of the greatest comments I've ever gotten. He was like, "Are you following the dialogue, or are you preceding the dialogue? Are you trying to make us feel during the dialogue, or because it sounds like you're doing all three?" I was like, "Oh crap, I am." And the idea is like music can react to a scene, or forebode a scene or a line. Right? Or it could go, it depends on where it goes. So it's one of those things where it kind of makes that point.
Wow, brilliant. I love it. Okay, one of the things I always say is that principles remain the same, methods change, right? So that's basically what you're, founding on here. Beautiful.
For sure.
And you keep on touching on your body of work. So we have to get it out before any time goes by. First of all, the Queen's Gambit. Oh my God. What the fuck, dude? You crushed the shit out of that, okay? And yes, I curse on the podcast sometimes. It's
okay. I didn't know. I never know. So you've opened the floodgates, sir.
There you go. Kidding. And then Godless, okay? And then I think I just learned. Did you work on Hacks too from HBO, dude? Okay,
that was this year.
So, bro, okay. Like, really? What WTF? So this is the thing, because this is very important, and I want the listeners to really hone in on this. People have said in the past, oh, if you're a teacher, it's because you can't do anymore, so you go hunker down and you teach now because you can't do it for real. This is the premise that you have bulldozed through. You just said it. You're actively doing the current shit that's on the top of the charts right now, and you're also a teacher. So that, my friends, everybody listening, you heard it first. Carlos Rafael Rivera has broken that paradigm. He shattered it. That's it.
I got to say, man, it's funny you say it, and thank you for saying that. I do think that, again, I got really lucky getting Hacks, because I don't, it's a longer story, but I don't know how I ended up on the show. I even told the producers, like, why'd you hire me? Because it's a comedy, right? It makes no sense. It has no connection to Queen's Gambit, yet there are emotional beats to the story that I've started looking back to understand why. Right. But the point is, like, I got really lucky with that. I even had a bad meeting with them. My first meeting with them was like at some point in November or December, and then I got called in February to do it. But with the meeting, it was like, I kept saying, I think it's going to be really hard. How are you going to do like the Vegas older lady with the young up and comer? And what kind of music? What tone is that? I mean, I was just like arguing against the premise, and as far as how music could actually help. And I guess they hired me because I don't know why still. And I really feel lucky because I didn't know. It was somewhere in the middle of the gig that I realized, dude, this is pretty freaking awesome. And Jean Smart, anything with Jean Smart in it is like a thrill. She's going to win everything because she deserves everything. She's That's just right. Such a good actor.
Crushed it.
But the last thing I'll say is about those who can't do teach, or those who can't teach do, or whatever. Right. I've always had that bitter feeling since before any of this level of awareness that people have had of the work I do. I've always felt like that's not fair. It puts any teacher. It's a sad thing how society doesn't celebrate teaching like they should sports people, or you know what I mean?
Amen.
Because you are changing lives as a teacher. You are literally directly influencing, and I'm talking like just regular school, like, whether you're teaching math, history, science, English, whatever, you are directly affecting the children of people that don't care much about the teaching profession. And so it's a really undervalued career, yet it's one of the most beautiful and most rewarding things I've ever done. Teaching has been like the reason to be alive. Hi, this is Carlos Rafael Rivera, and you're listening to The Career Musician with Nomad.
The Career Musician, keeping musicians informed and up to date on news that affects their music careers.
Help us continue to provide you with new and engaging content by getting our ratings up. Please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts.
Speaking of which, a fantastic example of your ability to shine light on things is through the Spitfire demo of scoring the Queen's Gambit. So first of all, thank you for doing that, because again, just like when you sat in on that session with Randy Newman, that's basically what you're allowing people to do now. And that's so important, because oftentimes just going through school, you don't get to see the actual hands-on nitty-gritty, right?
Yeah.
So
True.
Talk about that. How did that transpire? Was that something you brought, or Spitfire? Again, fantastic.
No, I got really lucky because I was just thinking about it. Lawrence Sunderland is one of the people that are in charge of their outreach stuff for Spitfire. And when I did Godless, I mean, it was like, that's like around 2016. And the show came out in 17, I think, but it was 2016, really 15 and 16. I was almost 2 years on it. And I remember, like, I bought my first library, like investment. It was like my big investment, and it was Albion 5 Tundra, and it was Spitfire. I had, some stuff from Logic, and I was using basically just the basic stuff, and I had Complete or Contact, but the first like orchestral thing was Spitfire. So I wrote a note to her at the end of Godless when I finished the job, and I said, I just want to let you know that Spitfire, that this really helped me get through the show. And there's a lot of Albion 5 all over Godless, like some of the high arpeggio stuff, the soft and wild arpeggios that go very high. It's one of the in the library, and the big doom, the booms that happen in the Darwin percussion. There's like a thing called Darwin percussion at library that when you hit boom, it does this. How would you say? Like it sounds cinematic. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like one of those that fill the room, And one of the coolest things was to be able to use that. And the first time I used the boom, I remember Scott, said, "Hey, I really like that. That's really cool. It sounds really cinematic." I was like, "Yes, perfect. The library's working," And now that I'm getting too long on the one example, the thing is that I ended up reaching out to her and saying, "I just want to thank you so much." She goes, "Oh, thanks for reaching out. We're going to do this thing about back to school if you'd like to do an article, and we can talk about it." So I started a relationship with them in which I talked about writing for Godless, and then the Emmy stuff started to happen. So that helped, awareness. But we just started a relationship. That was it. And then it sort of kept growing. And then by the time this stuff came out with the Queen's Gambit, I had used a lot of Spitfire. I mean, I became a Spitfire, what would you call it? A fan or
a junkie?
Junkie. Yeah. I mean, literally you could see the thread from Albion 5 to the next purchase, to the next purchase, to the next purchase. And it becomes like this really insane, spending spree. And I literally have bought most of the Spitfire collection, like over since 2016, so it's 5 years of just like, and around the holidays, I'm like, hey, I think I'm gonna give myself you know what I mean? It's that kind of world,
The gift, the holiday present that only you could give yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And then nobody, you're always like, why are you spending so much money? I was like, hold on, baby. No, it's just personal. It's like, so the truth is, like, I've been a fan of what they do. Yeah. And Native Instruments as well. They've been along the ride for all this time, that I've been working. And they were just really, this whole idea came about that they suggested, would you like to do a thing or a walkthrough of a scene? I was like, I don't know if we can because of Netflix, the visuals. So we were able to get Netflix to allow us to show picture, which made all the difference. And I'm so grateful to Netflix for allowing that, because really that is the way you learn, by working with assets and being able to see where exactly in the image you're choosing to start music or stop music or change an emotional beat. Right. And so for me, that was really like the big educational experience, was to be able to offer the visual. And so it wouldn't have happened without Netflix's approval. Or if it would have happened, it would have certainly not had as many views or been as interesting, because there's something about seeing the picture that changes everything,
That's right.
What we do, we work to picture. So
that's right. And I'm so glad you mentioned digital assets several times now. So I have another question. In talking with orchestrators such as Jordan Siegel and Jeremy or Tim Davies from that whole camp, and as we mentioned, one of the biggest gray areas, perhaps, or could be a little convoluted for people who haven't done it, is the process from the composer through orchestration and then final, recording, right? So talk about that process and how do you deal with it? Your mock-ups, how detailed or not detailed are your mock-ups? Are you the hands-on guy that does every little dynamic and every little control change within, the software? Or do you kind of just get the main sketch and then hand it off to an orchestrator and say, okay, this is my vision, now go run with it? How much of that?
Usually I'll hum something into my cell phone and I'll send it to Jeremy. No, I'm just kidding.
Make him do the work, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you're getting paid.
Yeah.
No, it's like, no, I'm actually a big fan of delivering it. Okay, so because of the context in which I'm writing, it's mostly very orchestra based stuff, and I understand the orchestra to a certain degree that I can write the demos, and when I hand things off to the team, Jeremy and all of that, they're like, what you heard in the walkthrough, and that is what they get. They get, flute one, or flutes, clarinets, bassoons, French horn, trumpet, trombone, tuba, or whatever, and they'll get, sometimes it's not as clean because we're rushing, but the elements are there. Their job of an orchestrator in Hollywood is very different than the concept of an orchestrator that we grow with or are taught. And the fact is, their skill set lies in the ability to grab anything and be able to arrange it for the orchestra, right? That's what they do. But there is a sort of meter that goes between the level of information they receive from a composer that goes from a melody and an accompaniment to a fully orchestrated and arranged demo. And there is somewhere in between is the world they live in. And it depends. I wouldn't be able to speak to or for any other composers. There's plenty that do even more detailed sketches than I do, So it does change. So whatever I would give you as an example is not what another composer would tell you that they give and hand off to Jeremy. And I'm sure in the conversation you had with Jordan and them, they'd probably explain a little further.
Yes.
But my job is I've always, and more important, like specifically the last few years, I've gotten more and more like detailed about wanting to make sure that the demo that the director hears is as final as it can be. It's like it can get printed if we need to. We could get mixed by a professional mixer, and it will sound okay. We got the Queen's Gambit to that level, and that's why that demo sounds good because of COVID. We thought we weren't going to have an orchestra, and there was not going to be orchestral sessions. So we were really trying to get those demos to be like, as in you can't tell the difference, kind of thing.
Right.
And so that to me was the big sort of thing. And now when I'm writing, and the thing I've discovered is that the more you understand the orchestra, the more you write using libraries, understanding what orchestral musicians physically can do, the better the demo will sound.
Right.
It's just because it's using those sounds and those samples and from the real players. So if you have samples that are doing things that aren't usually done, it doesn't translate into good or bad. It just translates into more fake. It doesn't sound real. And it's important to differentiate. Whether the intention is to be fake, then that could be an artistic choice, right? So but understanding that is been my life pursuit. Like I love how the orchestra works and the idea of it and the potential. It's a never-ending animal that you're just like in awe of being able to hear the French horns here and the trombones on the other side and trumpets and then where the timpani and the harp player and like it's almost like you play with this stereophonic thing on the speakers for the audience, And one important little thing is that I've always done is I clear the middle. When I'm scoring, because in the middle is where the dialogue lives. And that's going to always win. That wins. Right?
Number one, yes.
So anyway.
Now, I love that. Speaking of orchestrations and knowing, the animal as a whole and they're all the little sum of its parts, as a guitarist, I know you've experienced this. How many times have you been handed a guitar chart where the particular orchestrator or arranger didn't really know the capabilities or the incapabilities of a guitar, and they don't exactly know where middle C is on the actual guitar?
Yeah, the
if it's the
transposing.
ledger line, or they don't know that you can't go below a low E, 3 ledgers below, and so forth. You've experienced that, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, as a session guitar player, I mean, I did very little session work. I was in a rock band. I did like 5 or 6 sessions throughout my career that I would got called and paid for. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
I wasn't doing that to make a living. I certainly would have died of hunger if I tried to make a living at that. I was teaching, but I did go a couple times to friends or somebody that recommended me, and I'd show up and I did a session. But my main issue is the stigma that all of us guitar players have, is that don't give them music to read because they're not going to be able to read it. Don't give them a chart in the first place because they can't read. We can use our ears. I'll learn it, bro. Right? Isn't that the thing? I'll just learn. I'll show up and play it. Don't make me read it. And
I love that. So talk about how you transitioned from, playing guitar into this orchestral, composer, writer that you are.
Well, it was like the guitar, thing was the sort of thing. It was a guy called Randy Rhoads. I used to love Randy Rhoads, the guitar player. He's like my idol as a kid. Yep. And when I started playing it seriously, my goal was to learn, Revelation's Mother Earth, the guitar solo for that. It was the next to last track, I think, on Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy Osbourne. Yes. And I remember, and then I remember when I heard that solo the first time, at the back, with the diminished stuff, and I was like, what? And I remember, like, when the solo ended, I was smiling, and I noticed I was smiling. And I was just a very personal moment, private moment. I'm watching that same thing we used to record things with. I'm listening to that thing on the cassette, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I was just like, it was such a profound moment. And I thought to myself, the day I can learn that, the day I can play that, I want to be a great musician. And then eventually, years later, the day came, because I was like 11 and I was like 16 or 15 or something. And I learned it, and I used to, by ear, I'd move the needle on the record and play, move the needle on the record and play and play and play. And then I was able to play that solo, and I'd record myself playing with the record, and study it and all that stuff. And I remember the day happened, and the feeling was weird because in the back of my head, I had this thought that is like, you didn't write it. It's not really yours, right? Is it? That weird thought. And I was like, oh, crap. And I started writing songs. That's when I started writing songs with my brother, and he allowed me, and we formed a band together. We started doing that. And it was like that started making the writing thing important. And then I was in music class, and as a freshman, and getting my associate's degree in Miami-Dade, and I took a music appreciation class, and I heard The Rite of Spring. And that's when that orchestral bug started, because I heard it, and it was just like, I had never seen a blue sky before. It's what it felt like, So that started the ball rolling.
Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. First of all, I wanted to tell you, you're not old, bro. I'm 49. I'm right behind you, okay? So,
dude, you look 12.
Oh, well, you look young too. So, come on.
Zoom's treating you really well.
Okay, well, it's treating you really well too. And everything I see online, you look young as well. But I truly believe, like you said, I'm grateful, just as you are, to be here at this moment. With this understanding that life can hand you life, as you say, I love that. And something you don't always realize when you're in your 20s or even 30s. But as you live more, you realize, wow, sometimes you get dealt a hand that could be a little bit more difficult to, maneuver through. So
a lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of it. So I really appreciate that kind of candor and insight. With that in mind, this is a 2-part question before we wrap here. Sure. Number one, with that in mind, that premise in mind that we just discussed of life can beat your ass sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
How do you define success? And that's part A. And part B, what would be your words of wisdom for, the people coming up after you trying to do the same thing?
I think, I'm thinking of a quote called "Live Your Dream." It says, "Live your dream." And it's a quote by Barbie. So
Love it.
But actually, I think I saw it somewhere, and I was like, "Wow, Barbie said that." I don't know why it made me laugh for like hours. But the thing I would say is more importantly, be clear as to the idea of what giving up means, because I've especially certainly when the rock and roll dream stuff happened and we got signed, that was a harsh end, that ended so badly and so unexpectedly, but then there was like no coming back, and I resigned myself to the fact that I wouldn't be doing that. And plus I was getting older. If you're showing up to a meeting with a label and they're confusing you with your manager, there's a problem, right? You're starting to get older. Hold on, I gotta let the dog in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so the biggest thing is the experiences that you have are, I think you have to tell yourself that you're ready to let go. And changing your career path isn't an ending. It's an ending, certainly, but it's an opportunity for something else. I think the worst thing to do is say, I wish I had tried something. Mm-hmm. I think had you not tried it, had you not seen it through or try to see it through, you're going to probably become, a broken person. I think that when you have the concept that I want to try to be a composer, I want to try to be a songwriter, I want to try to be whatever, you got to see it through and try it. And at least you did it. And if you didn't, and if it wasn't in the cards for you, which it certainly wasn't in for the band stuff for me. We had a band that was like, it felt like we were going to change the world. We were like, just thinking when we would play shows in LA, it felt like we were too big for the room. It felt massive. We had these massive songs and we were signed. And I was like, bro, it's gonna happen. I was like, and I have never been more wrong in my life. I've never been like, and the thing is, when things don't turn out, not having the capacity to handle it can lead to depression, can lead to serious problems with your coping mechanisms. And it's better to train them as early as possible and go, life is not a fair thing. Mm-hmm. Life is the last thing life is fair. You think it's fair. It shows up to be fair in many movies, but how things happen is not expected. How you're like, what? This person's supposed to know what they're doing. They don't, and you start getting let down and let down and let down. So yeah, you can become really depressed. And I think understanding how to manage that and pivot, being able to pivot and change direction and really try to go for it. The fact that I'm talking to you here because of the Queen's Gambit is because Scott Frank decided to take private lessons. And at that time, I was looking for a third job. I was teaching at the Pasadena Conservatory. I was teaching as a TA at USC, and I was teaching privately. I was also working for a company called Taxi, listening to songs and writing critiques about them and making money by driving all the way over there where it was based on that. And at a time when gas prices were like ridiculously high, And Scott Frank was looking for a guitar student. And I put my name up in a place called Old Town Music, and he called me and I showed up to his house. This is 2003. So I would have never thought that he would be giving me the life that I've had ever. Nor did he obviously. We just met and had a relationship. He went and made his first movie. He used James Newton Howard, one of the great film composers, and to score it. And I was like, this is so exciting because I'm like, it's like having a friend who's a writer or director is almost like having like a friend who's going on a date. You're like, dude, how'd it go? You're vicariously like, you want to know everything. What happened? But you can't, it's not going to happen. I never thought of myself of like, I just got to find the right opportunity to get Scott to give me a job. I never thought of it that way. And it was like 5 years into our relationship that he started, Carlos, we've been doing this for a long time. You never asked me to hook you up. I was like, I know. And he's like, why? He's like, well, it's because I'm your teacher. And I'm in your world. this is who I am. And I don't want to break that because I really enjoy the relationship we have, and I have no expectations of it. And it's true, because how many times if you know somebody, you mention you know somebody that's well-to-do, somebody, a friend of yours shows up, hey buddy, I got a screenplay, can you show it to, can you do, and you're like, God, it's so awkward. I don't want to be put in an awkward position. I've never believed in that. So he gave me the opportunity, and that opportunity went away for him. I moved to Miami, and I was teaching at UM, and happy to do it. And I read that he was doing a Liam Neeson film, and I wrote to him saying, "Hey, there's no way I'm not going to be involved. I'll write the temp music like we were talking about the last time, but then you can get a professional composer." That's what I thought. You know what I mean?
Wow!
Like
So among the tombstones, that's how. Wow!
That's how I got the gig. That's how this happened. It's you know what I mean? It's like teaching. Yeah. You know, teach, man, because it can get you opportunities for film music. I don't know.
Well, so life handed you, something kind of, I guess, what you thought was a dud at the time with the band, and then it handed you an extreme winner on the other hand. So, look at that balance. That's beautiful.
There is no path that's a straight line. Only looking back after years you can follow it, but. Yeah. It's a zigzag. I mean, it's expected that if you're going to be doing music, that you're going to have multiple jobs, and you should expect that.
That's right.
You should expect that, and you should embrace the concept of giving back and teaching, because it's what I did, and it's how I made ends meet. And I got that first check from the Pasadena Conservatory, bro. That was like the best moment. I went to have lunch at, I don't know where it was with my wife. We went to a Macaroni Grill. Yeah. And I took her, and I was like, baby, we're gonna eat good tonight. I got my check, $100-something or whatever it was, that I'd gotten, and I was excited. And dude, I tell you, man, it's like, you go through these phases in your life, but you just got to be grateful for the fact that you're even doing music at all. Man, it's stupid to do it. Wow. It's crazy to do this, but we do it, right? It's a calling, isn't it?
Wow. I mean, that is the best, dude. Again, thank you so much for your humility at the top of your game, for still being so damn cool. Do you mind, for real, man, do you mind if we close with some fun rapid fire questions?
Fire away, bro.
All right.
Here's where it gets awkward. Let's go.
Last movie you saw in theaters?
Oh God, I can't remember.
Okay. Electric or acoustic?
Both.
Introvert, extrovert?
Both. I don't like people, but when I'm with people, I'm like the most extroverted ever.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think.
Okay, many musicians should.
Exactly. Musical guilty pleasure. Do you have some Debbie Gibson somewhere in your playlist stored away?
No, dude. I kind of dug her back then. I was in love with Debbie Gibson, man.
Yeah, she's a hottie, man.
Dude, I was like a big. I don't know. I was a big Debbie Gibson fan as a kid. So no, there's nothing. If I like it, it's probably as legit. And I don't mean like it's good if I like it. I'm saying like it can be anything. If I like it, I'm not embarrassed about it ever. There's no guilty pleasure in music for me.
I love it. Favorite food or restaurant?
Bistec Panizal, my wife.
Ah, nice. I love it. Dream collab. You've had a lot of amazing collaborations already, but any other dreams?
Dude, like I would love to do anything related to Star Wars, anything, because and honestly, I don't know if this is an audio or video, but look behind me, bro.
Yeah, Yoda. I see Yoda and R2-D2. I see the whole gang. Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I got Grogu, and it's like the whole, and like since a kid, but it's not. I'm certainly not expecting any of that to ever happen, but it's just to be anything, even if it's like a weird cue for one scene for anything, I'd be like, oh, and I'd be happy, And I'm happy already. Trust me. It's just like that kind of, that's the kid in me, the selfish kid that just, my God, man, Star Wars changed my life, and so many of us, right?
Absolutely. I had all the little toys and dolls and,
You had the Kenner toys, dude?
Oh, the Kenner toys? Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up. I had all the figurines and all of the Death Star and the battleships and all this. Yeah.
Oh my God, bro. We gave ours away. I was like 14 and we were moving away.
Yeah, I gave mine away too.
Do we keep them? I was like, nah, Mom, I'm over that. Had I known.
I wish I would have known.
Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Your friends would say you are...
All right.
Favorite city?
LA, Los Angeles. I love it.
All right. Hidden talents.
None.
Okay. And
I suck at just about everything.
an instrument you wished you played.
Oh, I think the cello.
Ooh, that's a good one.
The cello. I wish I could play it because I really love that instrument.
Hey, have you seen that hybrid model of a cello / guitar that what's his name? Tyler Bacon plays and a lot of these guys, composers.
No,
have you seen that?
no idea.
It's a weird. Okay, it looks like a cello, and you hold it. No, it has the shape of a cello, but it's not hollow. It's thin, and you hold it in your lap on the floor like a cello.
Like a cello.
Yeah, you play it, but it has like fret. You can either get it with frets or fret markings.
Wow.
And it's like a hybrid of a guitar, and it was built for guitar players who are composers who want to get that string, legato sound.
Oh wow! Like to make stuff, yeah. If you don't want to buy that and write for the cello well, and you play guitar, usually what I tell students is like, just tune your guitar like a cello.
Right.
And if you tune your guitar down to a C, the A string, the E to C, A to a G, the D leave alone. The G you can tune up to an A, and the B you tune down to an A, and then leave the E. You actually have a cello lin, because the top notes are like an octave higher of a violin, and the other ones are exactly a cello range. You're literally, and so you just got to think of the ergonomics, but it works, and it helps you write for the instrument.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a cheapest way to kind of write well for the cello.
I am stealing that trick from you.
Please do. Man.
Thank you. All right, and finally, here we go. What would you do if you weren't a career musician, composer, badass that you are?
Teach. That's what I do.
Okay, that's it. And if you didn't teach, what would you do?
I play video games all day, bro.
Okay, all right, done. I love it.
That's the only thing I want to get to do is if I had a choice, I'd be playing video games all day, the time. Awesome. That's awesome. I grew up with them, so it's my life. If I can't, so if I just don't have the time to play it. I want to, but I'm waiting for the next Breath of the Wild to come out, which is now till next year. But that's definitely in line.
And have you scored some video games yet? I didn't see that.
No, dude. No, yeah. I haven't done any of that. I'd love to, though. I mean, I love the genre. It's been like I said, I grew up playing ColecoVision, Atari 2600, ColecoVision. I never had the Intellivision, but I've had just about almost every video game kind of console, from the first Nintendo through the Super Nintendo through 64 through all of them. And I have the Switch, and so I've been mostly on a Nintendo kind of thing, but
yeah. We just bought my daughter the Switch last year, and man, what a fun console, man.
There is a game that I'm going to send you the link for, because I got to go look at it. And it's like $2 on the Nintendo Switch store.
What?
And it has been the entertainment family gatherer thing for us. It's like you're a fruit, or kind of a fruit, and you go and hack and slash or throw your boomerang at other fruits, and you all have it out. And even my wife plays it. She hates video games. And like we all play, and we're all screaming, I got to find it. It's like $2, and it's like the coolest freaking game ever. Like when we're done with this, I'm going to look for it and give you the name, because you're going to say, kids, I'm spending some money today. Let's get this game. $2. And it's going to be like better than any $60 game. It's so fun. It's so much fun.
I love that, man. Carlos Rafael Rivera, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been really fun. Really nice to meet you, man. Seriously.